Broadcasting live from the Business Radio X studios in Atlanta, Georgia, it's time for CEO Exclusive, brought to you by Anona Enterprises.
Good morning and welcome to CEO Exclusive, where we get emerging trends from CEOs and their most trusted advisors. I'm your host, Soyini Koch. So today I want to correct another oversight in our coverage that's been going on for a while. So we've had over 180 shows, and I haven't yet had anybody from the Latin American or Hispanic business community on the show. And there are lots of them. And so today I want to correct that oversight and find out what is happening in the Latin American business community that all CEOs need to know. So I'm happy to welcome Alejandro Coss, who is the president and CEO of the Latin American Chamber of Commerce here in Atlanta. And Alejandro, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for having me here.
So tell our CEOs, why is it so important that you're on the show, and what trends that are happening in the Latin American business community that you think they just absolutely have to know and may not know already?
Well, I think that the most important thing is the tremendous growth of the Latino community, in not only here in Georgia, but across the Southeast, and the undeniable entrepreneurial spirit of Latinos and Latinas. We have been starting businesses left and right, growing and contributing to the economy. Again, not only of Georgia, but of all of our neighboring states here in the Southeast and across the nation.
Mm-hmm. So give us some statistics. Like, what are the numbers looking like?
Well, I always like to start from the beginning. And Latinos started coming in large numbers to Georgia right before the time of the Olympics, right around 95, which coincided with a time where quite a long period of economic growth started. And that was the reason for Latinos to start moving here to Georgia, which is not what would you call a traditional destination for Latinos, like California or Texas or Florida, New York. Georgia and the Southeast were, in many cases even unknown. But those opportunities for employment, to start a new business, that's what attracted Latinos. And most Latinos came from abroad, from Mexico and from Latin America, Central America. So that made us a little bit different than other areas of the country with a large Latino population. Right now, if you go back to the census of 1990, right before this large growth of Latinos started here in Georgia, we represented less than 2% of the state population. Mm-hmm. Today, we represent about 10% of the state population, right? 1 million Georgians are Latinos.
Wow.
And I also want to...
We don't talk much about that.
Well, I think that everybody knows that there are a lot of Latinos here in Georgia, but maybe the numbers are not as widely known outside of people who like to look at the numbers, like myself. Mm-hmm. But I want to point out something that is very relevant, and that is that Georgia is now number 10 as a state in terms of Latino population. So going from practically a very small Latino population to be number 10 in the nation, following California and Texas, the states in the Southwest that have a long tradition of Latino presence, like New Mexico and Arizona, following New York and Florida. That's pretty remarkable. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So
the growth trajectory also must be very, very steep for us to go from nothing to pretty much to being number 10. That must be,
Oh, yes.
And is your expectation that Georgia will continue to grow and maybe overtake some of those states? Or you think we're going to pretty much just stay at number 10?
Well, it's always easier to grow when you have a small population and then it grows really fast. Base, so as we get larger, the growth starts to be less in terms of percentage wise, and also it's comparable to the growth in other parts of the country. So the Latino population across the nation is one of the fastest growing. The other important trend that we see is that now a lot of the growth is by the second or third generation being born here, and not necessarily by people coming from outside of the country or even from other parts of the country, which we're also seeing now.
Mhm. And so tell us about what this means in terms of businesses. So what percentage or what are some of the numbers of Latin American or Hispanic owned businesses in the state of Georgia, and how does that how is that represented, and what's the impact, the economic impact? Because CEOs love money, so that's what they want to talk about.
Yes. Well, it's hard to come by good numbers and statistics. The one of the best sources out there is the census, and they do a survey of business owners every 5 years. Unfortunately, the last one that's been published is from 2012, which is over 5 years ago. So we're expecting the numbers from the most recent survey in 2012 to be published
Any
day now.
Mhm.
But going back to 2012, the numbers that we have is that there were a little over 56,000 Latino-owned businesses in Georgia that generated close to $7 billion in revenue a year, and employ over 35,000 people, with a payroll of close to $1 billion.
Wow.
So Latino businesses continue to grow. We expect that when the numbers are finally released for 2017, to have a substantial growth, right? But it's important to note that a lot of these businesses, or rather, of those 56,000 businesses, only about 4,000 have employees. And they represent about 3/4 of the revenue generated by Latino businesses across the state.
So the other 52,000, are they solopreneurs?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, according to the statistics that we have.
Oh.
Mhm.
And so the 4,000 that actually do have employees those are the businesses that have scale, that are generating, you said 3/4 of that $7 billion?
3/4 of that, yes, a little over $5 billion in revenue. One of the other things that happens sometimes is that some business owners will create more than one company to manage their operation, right? If they have diversified, and they might have more than one company, and maybe not all of the companies have raised their employees.
Understood.
Okay, so that also explains. So it's not necessarily that are solopreneurs, or there is an individual businesses, but they can be part of other corporations or groups rather.
Mm. What industries do you think comprise the majority of that $7 billion in revenue? What industries are we looking at?
Well, I always say that doesn't matter the industry that you look at, there is a Latino or a Latina, there is participating in that industry. We have members across all industries, in manufacturing, in in IT, in healthcare, in services, and you name it. But undeniably, there is concentration, and we always look at it and identify three main areas. The first is construction. About and I have a number here. About a quarter.
I'm really happy you did your homework, Alejandro.
About a quarter of all of these businesses that I was mentioning, according to the census, are in the construction industry.
Mm.
So construction is very important, not only because of the number of Latino businesses, but also because it's probably the number one employer of Latinos, right? So that's why when the recession hit in 2008, our community was particularly hit, because it was a double whammy. On the one hand, a lot of people in construction that had a business in construction as subcontractors, or were focused on residential construction, that stopped overnight.
Mm-hmm.
So we saw a lot of businesses close down, but also a lot of people that work in construction lost their job, or saw their income, reduce substantially, and many of them had to go to other industries to find work, and that affected companies or businesses that serve Latinos, you know, anything from goods and services, grocery stores. I think a lot of people have seen the Latino supermarkets or the Mexican carniceria across town, and hopefully had to stop by one of them and do some exploring and found things interesting and new. Um, but a lot of these businesses also were affected because their market, which is the Latino consumer, saw their income reduced, so their consumption went down, and that was a double whammy for our community and for a lot of our businesses. So even businesses that were not even closely related to construction were affected because of that diminishing revenue.
What are the other two? So you said construction. There are three.
So construction is one. The second one is probably hospitality, food service, mostly, and I'm sure that everybody has a favorite Mexican restaurant. Particularly if you're in the suburbs. So we have a lot of members in the food service industry. For some reason, is an industry where a lot of immigrants start businesses, and we are fortunate that Mexican food is very popular, right?
It's good.
It is good. I will not argue with that. Definitely, and we have many choices here. So food service is another one, and again, everybody thinks of Mexican food, and it's probably one of the, not one of the, is the largest number of Latino-owned restaurants are, serving Mexican food or Tex-Mex. But there are also restaurants that serve food from other countries, like Colombia, like Peru, Puerto Rico. I mean, is a tremendous diversity. And I will encourage your listeners to be a little adventurous out there and take a drive down Beaufort Highway and stop not only at the familiar Mexican restaurants, but also some of the other cuisines from around Latin America that are offered here. Peruvian restaurants, Colombian, as I said. I mean, there are many, many delicious options out there, and I will highly encourage them to give them a try. So we also have people who have, bought them through franchises from some of the major chains. So it is a very, very diverse. We have from low end to high end restaurants that are in this segment.
Mm-hmm.
So very diverse. But again, we have to recognize that because of the popularity of Mexican food, the majority are serving Mexican food, and their market is not the Mexicans that are here, but it's the general public.
What about number three?
Well, number three, here you have to give us a little bit of a leeway, and we're casting a very wide net. But number three is companies, businesses that are selling goods and services to the Latino community, to the Latino market, right? And this can be very, very diverse, from those supermarkets and carnicerias that sell all of the foods, not only from Mexico, but from, again, across Latin America and Central America. But businesses that are selling auto parts, businesses that are repair shops for vehicles, businesses that are selling insurance or other services to the Latino community. You have to remember, and I have some data here for you as well. I can tell that you like data. The Latino buying power in Georgia is close to $20 billion.
Wow, it's a lot of buying power.
It is. So again, if you go back 20 years, that market wasn't here, right? And it all of a sudden came, and it came across and established itself across the metro area. We're not only on Beaufort Highway. We're not only along Jimmy Carter Boulevard. We're not only in Gwinnett County. We are in Cobb. We are in North Fulton and South Fulton. Uh, you know, in Forest Park, out on the west suburbs, on the east suburbs. I mean, we're everywhere. So that created opportunity, and a lot of people and a lot of Latinos saw those opportunities and started businesses to serve the community.
Mm-hmm. Great. So listeners, we're talking to Alejandro Coss, who's the president and CEO of the Latin American Chamber of Commerce in Georgia, about trends in the Latin American business community that I really think are important for you to take note of. So the demographic changes around Latinos and Hispanics in the United States have been well documented and have been discussed. But so most of our audience are kind of CEOs that are in the mid-market that are certainly maybe not necessarily Latino focused. And I'm wondering what you think are some of the opportunities or what you think they should be paying attention to relative to either the larger demographic changes, like the fact that I think at some point in the 2020s, the Hispanics are going to be the largest minority group in the United States, or from a business standpoint, taking advantage of that $20 billion in buying power. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, if they are not paying attention to Latinos, they should.
Which is why I was like, oh my God, I got to get somebody on the show.
Yes. Latinos are right now the largest minority in the country. And as I said, tremendous opportunity for business, tremendous opportunity for growth. If you go to some stores, I don't know if I can name names here, but if you go to some of the big box home improvement stores, depending on when they are, of where they are located here in the metro area, you might see signs in Spanish, right? And that is not by chance. That is not, because they want to be nice to us Latinos who speak very poor English. No, it's because they recognize there is a market, and they are doing everything they can to attract the market, to make sure that this consumer feels comfortable going to the store and shopping there. And I think that is important. And we see that strategy across corporate America. And it's a very intentional, very targeted, very focused strategy, because this is a growing market that is, just here in Georgia, over $20 billion. So, that's a great opportunity. If for some reason, some of your listeners are not focused on the consumer, but they are focused on, they do B2B businesses, tremendous growth also in the number of Latino businesses that require, also goods and services. And we see that when we have people come to the chamber and approach us and want to be not only join the chamber, but be engaged and participate, because they want to reach this new segment of growth, of opportunity, which is Latino-owned businesses.
So as a follow-up, we're looking at that from a different angle. And maybe I'm wrong, so correct me if my perception is wrong, but it feels like, especially as I was doing the research for this show, like the Latin American business community is a little bit set apart. Like if I go to a Metro Chamber, I'm not necessarily seeing like a lot of Latin American businesses, and this conversation that we're having, I'm not hearing it everywhere in the business community in Georgia. And certainly like the consumer demographic conversation, we've heard a lot in the general press, but this conversation about Latin American businesses, business owners, the importance of that, I'm not necessarily hearing that as much as I think that we should. And I'm wondering if you can speculate as to why.
Well,
and maybe, like I said, maybe my perception is wrong and I'm not looking in the right places, but, so if I'm wrong about that, I would love for you to say no, that it's not true. But if you think that it's true, then, why?
I will say there is not entirely true. I think there is still, I think there is a lot of people, a lot of CEOs, a lot of executives, like I mentioned, the big corporations here definitely have a strategy, not only to reach the Latino consumer, to reach Latino businesses, but also on diversity, right? Because that is also very, very important, and diversity is good business. And I think that a lot of CEOs see that as well in the mid market, and are looking to the Latino community for opportunities for growth. You know, but I think that we still need to work on that. That's why when you invited me to come, I jumped into the opportunity, because we want to let as many people as we can know what is going on in the Latino community, and that is what happens sometimes, that there is not enough information. Right? Everybody that you ask, you know, will know that there are a lot of Latinos in Georgia. That's easy, right? You can see us everywhere. You can hear us speak Spanish. You can see the signs in Spanish on Beaufort Highway, or along Jimmy Carter Boulevard in Gwinnett. But that's sometimes the extent of the knowledge of some people. Some people think that all we do is cut the grass and wash the dishes. And
Well, no, you serve Mexican food at the restaurant too.
yes, and we do sushi. And I mean, I was telling you the importance of the Latino workforce for the construction industry.
Mm-hmm.
Same goes for hospitality. If you go up to Gainesville, is the Latino workforce. If you go up to Dalton, two very important industries in the state, is the Latino workforce that make these industries remain competitive. And that is sometimes overlooked. So I think that this lack of information, right? And it's not only from the general public, not only from CEOs or business owners, non-Latinos, government officials, So it's part of what we do. And that's why I have all of those numbers in my head, because I keep repeating them every time I get a chance to.
Great. And, thank you. I appreciate the fact that you jumped at the opportunity to be on the show. So as you think about your own growth and your own strategy, both for supporting Latin American business in Georgia and then also telling the story more broadly, what are your strategic objectives? And where do you hope that this conversation will be in, let's say, the next 10 years or the next 5 years?
I think in the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to be in a different place. We're going to continue to see growth, not the impressive growth that we had so far, but a relevant and important growth nonetheless. I will say that from my perspective, our community is also changing. Not only our community at large in terms of the population, but also the business community. As I mentioned before, the growth of Latinos to Georgia and the Southeast was basically by immigrants. So we're still a very, very immigrant community. But that is changing now. And we see also people from other parts of the country that have other, let me rephrase that. Latinos from other parts of the country moved to Georgia, right? And the second generation, they are becoming adults, whether they were brought here as kids or were born here, they are becoming adults, and they are joining the workforce, and they are starting businesses. And that is making a difference. So we are now transitioning into that second generation. If you go to, say, Texas and California, and you meet a Latino business owner, chances are that man or that woman started that business, but chances are as well that he is or she is the second, the third, the fourth generation that has run that business. We don't have that here in Georgia. I will say that the majority of times when you meet a business owner, a Latino business owner or a Latina, you're talking to the man or the woman who started that business. But we're starting to see that change with the second generation joining the business, starting to run the business, starting to take a more active role, starting their own businesses. And obviously millennials, they are going into technology and some other industries. There are not these three industries that I mentioned to you, and I think that's very relevant for us at the chamber. What we're doing, we're always looking to find ways where we can serve our members first and the Latino business community in Georgia and the Southeast at large as well. When the chamber was founded 20 years ago in 1998, and it was founded because a number of Latino business owners felt the need for organization that represented them. They didn't feel represented or included in other organizations, other chambers of commerce. And a lot of our work at that time was helping people start their business and launch their business. Right now, at that time, there were very few, if any, other organizations that were doing that specifically, and specifically for the Latino community. Now we're fortunate enough that there are other organizations doing that, so we don't have to do that anymore. We can refer people to other organizations that are doing tremendous job, helping people start and launch their business, where we can refer, as I said, people, organizations that are partners of ours that we work together. So now we are focusing on helping our members and helping Latino businesses grow and reach the next level. So we do a lot of programs for on education, right? For our business to for instance, we do a lot of work on compliance, because a lot of our members have employees, so we do a lot of compliance on HR, right? So we do also, one of our areas of focus now is to increase the number of Latino-owned businesses that are certified as minority business and are doing business with government and also with the private sector. And there we are, I will say, severely underrepresented, right? And it's nobody's fault. It is, I guess, part of the process, right? Because companies, or when Latinos started coming here, they started their business where they saw opportunity. But now we are at a point where we can and have businesses that are capable of bidding
at that level.
Exactly. Or becoming suppliers of prime contractors. So there is a lot of opportunity there that we're trying to get more Latino businesses to, as I said, certify and participate in those opportunities.
Great. And so as we draw to a close, certainly would love to talk with you about this more. What are some of the things that are new and exciting that are happening at the chamber that you think our CEOs need to know? If somebody wants to come to a Christmas party just to see what's happening at the Latin American Chamber, what's going on?
Funny you mentioned a Christmas party, because
I'm sorry, holiday party. Oops. Oops.
We have two big fundraisers at the chamber. One is our golf tournament in June that we've been doing for 20 years. And the other one is our annual gala that we do in December. And we do it in December. Is a tradition. We call it La Posada. And it's a tradition in Mexico and in Latin America now it has become a Christmas party. So I won't go into the history of that. You have to come to La Posada, which is going to be December 1st in 2 weeks. It's at the Intercontinental Hotel. It is a great event. It is very festive. We keep the formalities to a minimum. So it is more than anything a celebration, a party, an opportunity for our members, for our sponsors, for our friends to come and visit with us, with other chamber members, and network, make new connections. And it's, as I said, it's going to be at the Intercontinental Hotel, December 1st. And it's going to be us and about 500 of our closest friends. So I encourage you to call the chamber, visit our website at laccgeorgia.org, and call us and find more information. We still have tickets available. So great opportunity to get involved with the chamber and have a great time at the same time, because it's a great party. The people at the Intercontinental the chefs do a special Latin inspired menu for us. We have live music, a lot of surprises. So it is a great opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Listeners, we've been talking to Alejandro Coss, the president and CEO of the Latin American Chamber. You've been listening to CEO Exclusive. I'm your host, Soyini Koch, and I hope you have a profitable, productive, and very prosperous week. Thanks.
This show is brought to you by Anona Enterprises, where strategy is your access to money and performance. Learn more at AnonaEnterprises.com.